Ever feel like you're in a constant game of strategy, even in everyday life? Like trying to figure out the best move or anticipate what others will do.
Yeah.
Well, today, get ready to dive into the world of deception.
Ooh, exciting.
And not just like the smoke and mirrors kind either. We're taking a cue from Sun Tzu's The Art of War,
Ah, a classic.
a military treatise influencing strategy for centuries.
Oh, absolutely.
Not just on battlefields either,
Right.
but in business, politics,
Definitely.
maybe even your last staff meeting.
It's everywhere.
So, The Art of War.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it.
Sun Tzu was writing all those years ago.
Right.
But he tapped into something fundamental about human nature.
What's that?
We react to what we perceive to be true,
Right.
whether it actually is or not.
Well, for sure. Perception is everything.
So deception, then, isn't just about straight-up lying.
Well, it's more about, how do you put it? Shaping the narrative.
Oh, okay, I see.
Sun Tzu's famous line.
Which one?
All warfare is based on deception. But he's not talking about random trickery.
Gotcha.
This is calculated.
So how does it work?
You manipulate your opponent's perception, making them see strength where you have weakness.
Ooh, sneaky.
Opportunity where there's a trap.
So like leading them down the wrong path.
Exactly.
Oh, I see.
Think of it like a poker game. You might have a terrible hand,
Uh-huh.
but if you can bluff convincingly,
All right.
make your opponent think you've got something strong,
Okay, yeah.
you control the game.
So you're saying I'm starting to see how this applies beyond just, actual war.
Oh, definitely.
But let's get some historical context. We've got the Battle of Cannae.
Ah, yeah.
Hannibal versus the Romans.
The classic.
That was a masterclass in deception.
Oh, Cannae is a perfect example. Hannibal, he was outnumbered,
Oh, wow.
but he knew the Romans, they were all about brute force.
Yeah, just charge in.
So he set a trap, intentionally weakened his center
Hey.
to make it look vulnerable.
Oh, I see.
And the Romans, they charged right in. Talk about taking the bait. Hook, line, and sinker. They walked right into Hannibal's carefully planned, what's it called? Double envelopment. Basically, he let them push through his seemingly weak center and then his stronger forces,
Yeah.
which were hidden on the flanks. They closed in from both sides, like a pincer movement. The Romans were trapped.
Oh, no.
And it was one of the most devastating defeats in military history.
Something like 70,000 Roman soldiers died in a single day.
It was a massacre.
That's mind-blowing. So for someone trying to use deception today, what's the key takeaway from Cannae?
It's not about lying for the sake of lying. It's about understanding the psychology of your opponent.
Oh, okay.
You have to know what they expect, what assumptions they're making,
Yeah.
and then you use that to your advantage.
So playing with their expectations, almost like a mind game.
Exactly. You nudge them towards misinterpreting the truth.
Interesting.
You're not creating a completely false reality. You're just, how should I say it, subtly tilting the playing field in your favor.
Okay.
It's all about those little nudges.
I'm getting chills here. This is all so strategic.
It is a fascinating subject, isn't it?
And speaking of brilliant strategists, let's jump ahead to World War II.
All right, let's do it.
General Montgomery pulling off some serious mind games against Rommel.
The Desert Fox.
What did he do? Fake a whole army?
He created an elaborate illusion, yeah. Inflatable tanks, dummy camps, even misleading radio transmissions. All to make the Germans think his main attack was coming from the south.
So a classic feint. Draw attention away from the real target.
Precisely. And while the Germans were focused on the south,
Uh-huh.
Montgomery secretly built up his forces in the north for a surprise attack.
And it worked.
Oh, it worked brilliantly.
It's like he orchestrated this whole performance to throw them off balance.
Exactly.
So Montgomery's success, then, it highlights another key element of deception: timing. You need to deploy it at precisely the right moment
Oh, absolutely.
to maximize its impact.
Timing is everything.
It seems like timing is crucial in all these examples.
Yeah.
Is that a key element of deception?
Oh, absolutely. Think of a magician.
Oh, yeah.
Their tricks depend not just on what they show you, but when they show it.
Right. Misdirection.
Exactly.
So it's not just what you do.
It's when you do it.
Makes sense. And both Hannibal and Montgomery, they didn't just make stuff up, right?
No. Yeah.
They were using deception to create a misleading picture, but it was based on some truth.
Right. You have to have a foundation of truth to build upon.
You mentioned concealing information. Can you give an example of how that works?
Sure. Take General Daniel Morgan during the American Revolution. He used a feigned retreat to lure the British into a trap.
Oh, wow.
He wasn't creating a fake army, just exploiting the British assumption that retreat equals weakness.
Ah, so you're playing on existing assumptions.
Precisely. You give them just enough truth to make them believe the lie.
Clever. And you know what else I find fascinating? Decoys. Fake camps, dummy equipment. It's like something out of a spy movie.
It might seem like a Hollywood invention, but decoys have been used effectively for centuries. And during World War II,
What happened?
the Allies, they used inflatable tanks and aircraft
What?
to fool the Axis powers about, well, the location and strength of their forces.
Oh, it's not just about what they see.
Right. If you see a large encampment,
Yeah.
you assume a lot of activity is happening. Troop movement, supplies, communication.
I guess that makes sense.
The enemy might divert resources to counter a threat that doesn't even exist.
It's like a magician's misdirection.
Exactly. You're so focused on what's not important that you miss what is.
But creating these elaborate deceptions, all these feints and decoys, it must require a ton of intel, right?
Oh, absolutely. Intelligence is key.
You can't just make it up as you go along.
You need solid information to build your deceptions upon. Sun Tzu, he emphasized the importance of spies and agents. In gathering information about the enemy, you can't deceive someone effectively if you don't understand them right. Their strengths, weaknesses, how they tend to behave.
So you need to know your enemy as well as you know yourself.
Maybe even better.
And that's where intelligence becomes crucial.
It's the foundation of any successful deception.
It's not just about collecting data. It's about analyzing and interpreting it, using it to craft deceptions that exploit specific vulnerabilities. Take Alexander the Great, for example.
A brilliant military leader?
He also had a network of spies feeding him intel about his enemy.
Oh, absolutely. Knowledge is power, as they say.
So Alexander the Great was basically playing 4D chess with his opponents.
He was a master strategist, able to combine his military skills with strategic deception, all fueled by accurate intelligence. It allowed him to strike at the heart of the Persian Empire, often when they least expected it.
Wow, talk about a strategic advantage. So it's this constant dance, right?
A delicate balance.
Trying to gather intel on your opponent, while also keeping your own plans hidden.
It's a high-stakes game of cat and mouse. But when it works, it can completely shift the power dynamic in your favor. And what's really fascinating is that this doesn't just apply to war.
You're saying Sun Tzu's ideas about deception, they have applications beyond warfare.
Absolutely. Think about the business world. Companies constantly engage in competitive strategies that involve elements of deception.
So we've seen how powerful deception can be in war, using history as our guide. But it's not just limited to the battlefield, is it? You were saying something about the business world.
Oh, right. Think about it. Companies, always trying to get ahead of the competition.
Ah.
They often use strategies, that borrow from the principles of deception.
Oh, really? Give me an example. I'm all ears.
Okay, so think about marketing campaigns. They often create this illusion of scarcity
Oh, yeah.
or exclusivity to make you feel like you have to buy something right now.
Oh, I see what you mean. Like those, what are they called? Limited time offers.
Yes,
Exclusive deals that pop up everywhere.
exactly.
They make you feel like you're missing out if you don't jump on it immediately.
Fear of missing out. It's a powerful motivator. They're
Wow.
playing on that, you see, creating a sense of urgency.
Yeah.
That leads to, well, more sales.
So it's not necessarily lying about the product itself. It's about how they present the information
Exactly.
to influence what we do.
It's all about framing, really. And think about branding in general. Companies spend millions of dollars crafting a specific image, a carefully constructed perception of their products, their values.
So it's all about shaping the narrative, right? Controlling how people see their brand.
They want to control the story.
It's wild how these principles of deception can be applied to something, as every day is selling a product.
It's all around us. And don't forget the political arena. Politicians use these same techniques all the time to sway public opinion. They might, for instance, emphasize certain aspects of their policies while downplaying others. Or, framing issues in a way that appeals to specific groups of voters.
Ah, so that's what they mean by spin.
Spin, yes. It's all about perception management, isn't it?
Right. And that often involves a degree of, shall we say, strategic communication.
Right.
Not necessarily outright lies, but definitely, carefully crafted narratives that present a particular version of reality. It makes you wonder if all warfare is based on deception, as Sun Tzu said. How much our daily lives is shaped by these subtle forms of deception? I mean, think about advertising, social media. We're bombarded with messages, designed to influence our opinions and choices all the time.
It's a valid point. It really raises the question, how do we navigate this world of manipulated perceptions and information overload?
It's overwhelming.
How do you separate truth from spin, especially when the lines are so blurry?
It's a challenge, for sure. But maybe Sun Tzu's teachings can actually help us with that.
Oh, interesting. How so?
If we understand how deception works, we can be more aware of when it's being used to influence us.
Ah, I see. Knowledge is power.
By recognizing those techniques, we become, what's the word, more discerning consumers of information, more critical thinkers. We're less likely to fall for those manipulative tactics.
It's all about being aware.
So what's the bottom line?
Yeah.
Is deception always a bad thing?
That's a good question.
Or can it be used ethically?
That's a complex question. I don't think there's a simple answer. Deception, by its very nature,
Yeah.
it involves a degree of ethical ambiguity.
Right, I get that. On the one hand, you can see how it's used to gain an advantage, achieve a goal.
Sure.
But it can also be used to manipulate and take advantage of people. How do we know where to draw the line?
It comes down to intent, really, and the potential consequences of our actions. Are we using deception to harm others?
Right.
Or to help them? These are some pretty weighty questions you're asking.
You've given me a lot to think about. This all sounds very high level, but let's bring it down to earth for a minute. Our listeners might be thinking, okay, interesting stuff, but how does this apply to me?
You'd be surprised how often you're probably already using elements of deception in your everyday life without even realizing it.
Wait, really? Like how?
Think about any situation where you're trying to persuade someone, like, say, a negotiation.
Oh, okay.
Maybe you're buying a car, negotiating a salary, or even just trying to get your kids to eat their vegetables.
Okay, I can see that. I'm definitely guilty of some creative persuasion with my kids.
In those situations, you're using strategic communication to get someone to do something that's in your best interest. And that might involve, let's say, a bit of information management.
So I might highlight the things that support my position and maybe downplay the things that don't.
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
You might make a strategic concession to gain something more valuable later. It's all part of the game.
It's like we're all playing this subtle game of strategy all the time without even knowing it.
We are.
It's kind of blowing my mind right now.
It is fascinating, isn't it? But that's what makes this topic so intriguing. Deception. It's woven into the fabric of human interaction.
Yeah.
From ancient battlefields to modern-day boardrooms and even our own homes.
So the next time our listeners find themselves in a negotiation, they should channel their inner Sun Tzu and think about how to use those principles of deception to their advantage.
Exactly. But remember, it's not about being dishonest or manipulative.
Right.
It's about understanding the power of perception and using it strategically, ethically, and with a clear understanding of the potential consequences.
It's a delicate balance, for sure.
Deception is a powerful tool, but like any tool, it can be used for good or for ill.
Ultimately.
The choice is ours.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the art of deception.
Let's leave you with this.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the art of deception, you left us with a real head scratcher. You said, if all warfare is based on deception, what does that say about competition in other areas of life? That's got me thinking. Are we all constantly battling for something?
Could be.
Resources? Recognition? Influence? Is that just like the human condition?
It's a possibility. It makes you wonder how much of that battle is about perception, right?
Yeah.
How often are we trying to shape how others see us, our ideas, even our values?
It's almost like we're all playing this game.
Whether we're aware of it or not.
It's kind of unsettling, isn't it?
A little bit, yeah.
To think that even in harmless interactions, there might be some strategic maneuvering going on beneath the surface. It's like, are we ever really seeing the whole picture?
Perhaps that's just the nature of human interaction. We're complex beings, driven by so many motivations, some we don't even realize ourselves.
Right.
And in a world where perception often shapes reality, it's no surprise that deception plays a role, for better or worse.
I guess it makes you more attuned to those subtle cues, the little nudges, the manipulations we might encounter every day, like suddenly seeing the matrix.
Right. You start to see the patterns.
There's more to everything than meets the eye.
Absolutely.
Right.
And that awareness is key.
To what?
By understanding these principles of deception, we become more insightful observers of human behavior, more critical thinkers. And ultimately, more adept players in the game of life.
So to our listeners out there, remember Sun Tzu's wisdom.
Yes.
Be aware of the power of perception.
How it can be shaped.
You might be surprised how often you're encountering these tactics, from the supermarket to your social media feed.
It's everywhere. And keep in mind, the art of deception, it's a double-edged sword.
Meaning?
It can be used constructively
Or
destructively.
The choice is always ours.
Choose wisely.
Indeed. Perhaps with a little knowledge and a lot of awareness.
We can all navigate this world of deception a bit more skillfully, ethically, after all. Being aware of the game is the first step to playing it well.
That's a great takeaway. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into the fascinating world of deception. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, stay sharp and keep your eyes peeled for those subtle signs of strategy at play. You never know who you might be facing across the table, metaphorical or otherwise.